Hey guys, making a midweek video for you this week, talking a little bit about all things Solomon's Porch. And we've been reviewing things like what are the timeless practices, which are giving, prayer, fasting, serving the poor, and rest. We talked about timeless as an overarching sort of philosophy, and that we went down, you know, really how originally I used ancient to talk about the way I thought about the church, but had transitioned to using timeless, and that it really suited what Psalms Porch was trying to do, which is really tap into this historic Christian faith. I heard Doug Wilson earlier in the week talk about what he calls a mere Christendom. So what he is talking about in a mere Christendom, you have often heard me refer to as a Nicene Christianity, trying to build something uh, bigger and more strategic, but that's historic, so that our alliance is along the lines of, what we believe the scriptures teach, but then also there's the natural law or natural revelation, as reformers would have called it. So anyway, I just thought it's interesting. If you get a chance, Doug's uh, talk on Mere Christendom, maybe done a couple days ago, 3 days ago, in this blog and May blog. Anyway, for members at Psalms Porch, I got a chart for you here on the screen, and you can see that it says SPCC member here in the middle, and then there are three sort of adjacent circles for it. Pastoral visitation, that's time with me. I try to routinely go and visit with people and spend time with people, and whether that's coffee with one or sometimes with the whole family. Sometimes I might eat lunch with you when at one of our fellowship times at Psalms Porch or at our evening. I may try and sit with you and talk. So I pray for you, but Lynn and I know try to be real hands-on as far as just keeping up with you folks and pastoring and shepherding. Make sure we're available to offer wisdom for life decisions if you need, and things like that. So pastoral visitation is really important for us, that we stay connected to the body in a real organic way. And that even plays into a lot about what we think about size. Where we talk about relatively small is one of the S's in timeless. So pastoral visitation, and then timeless practices. I've already mentioned those: giving, prayer, fasting, serving the poor, and rest. But then, before we jump into the overarching sort of teachings on discipleship and Christian discipline, which are sort of next up after this, I want to talk with you about HIVE, spiritual friendship, right? And HIVE stands for humility, intentionality, vulnerability, and expansion. And so what we sort of are going for here, we don't do a lot of structured things at Psalms Porch, though there's more of that I've noticed with men and women meeting on a regular basis, with student ministry meeting on a regular basis. So you've got some other organic meetings. So the HIVE spiritual friendship that you see on the screen here has to do with what we want for everyone in the body to have close friends. While we want everybody in the body to be as close as possible and as friendly as possible, when you get above a certain size, it's impossible to be equally intimate with everyone. And then you also have a degree of maturity in the body too, so that intimacy, as far as being vulnerable to other people or confessing your sins to other people, you have to be wise as you do that, and choose people that can be trusted, and choose people that are peers to you. Most of the time you'll see it that way. And then also too, one of the other things is that opposite sexes obviously are not going to be involved in these intimate relationships outside of marriage, of course. And so so when you look at the way relationships are built in the body, so what we've tried to encourage people is to say, look, in 1 John, there are fathers and there are young men and there are children in the faith. And so there are essentially the three designations that you have. And so what we encourage somebody to be is, if you're a young man, have somebody upstream from you as a father, and then have somebody downstream from you who's more of a child in the faith, someone that you're feeding into and someone that you're receiving, wisdom from. And then, so, try to have a more than a couple relationships. If you're a father in the faith, which are not too many, fathers in the faith, but, spend your time, make sure that you're pouring into at least one or two people intentionally there, giving your time to others. If you're a child in the faith, you're newer to the faith, one thing I encourage you to do is reach out and fill your life in with peers and mentors that you can trust, will say hard things to you, who you can confess your sins to, things like that. And so we encourage people to have these people, and then make sure they kind of get together a couple times a month, once a month. And when they do get together, we encourage them, there's some other material I've created to kind of help, like what should those times look like? We're talking about dividing our time appropriately. Friends engage in small talk, so make sure to leave some space at the end for unstructured time. But I encourage you to, if you're going to meet somewhere and you've only got a set amount of time to pray together, to confess your sins together, to talk about your lives together, as far and I mean your spiritual lives, where you're pursuing the Lord, where you've been reading, where you're in a conviction, things like that. So when you're meeting together, I encourage you to get to business when you get there, and then save the unstructured time for the end. Otherwise, what happens is the unstructured time just eats out the spiritual time. And it's just a natural thing. I've just seen occur again and again and again, whether it's small groups or, you can see this in your individual life. You'll say, well, I'm going to watch one show, and, then I'm going to go spend time with the Lord. And 3 shows later, it slipped your mind after the first show, in the break while you were getting a drink, and you went right back to it. So these times of enjoyment that we have with others and that we have alone, even there are appropriate places for those. But what I find is you have to make sure to do the thing first, right? So if you're going to spend time with the Lord, best to do it, at the first available opportunity. So when you get to one of these meetings that you have with somebody that you've chosen, and it's understood between both of you that you're going to be this kind of spiritual friend to each other, that when you get together, if it's for a HIVE meeting, that you engage in that, and then small talk, sort of at the end. So choose an appropriate setting too. One of the things is we try to do things in coffee shops a lot, and people are sitting too close, and it's hard to confess in. So be careful about the places that you choose these. Warmer weather, great time in the morning, choose, go to a park, something like that. I know that Lynn and I've met a couple times at parks and things like that. It's been a really good place to meet. So start with prayer together, pray for one another, both your spiritual goals and your struggles too. That's another reason why it's good to have an appropriate setting. If it's too loud, it's hard to pray. It's hard to pray. I found at Starbucks with, Bob Marley playing in the background. So I usually either didn't go to places like that, or I had headphones and white noise. And so anyway, you can make your place appropriate though for your meeting. So ask 4 settled kind of questions together. How's your daily communion with God? Where you're reading and studying the scriptures, and where you're reading and studying, why are you reading and studying there? What are you doing to intentionally pursue a life of holiness? Have you been honest in our conversation today? At the end, it's not wrong to press one another. Sometimes it's a second round when somebody comes clean. Usually bring a 3x5 note card or something to write requests on, so you can remember to pray for that person. Throw it in your car, or throw it at your desk at your office, on your nightstand. Obviously if the request is private, you need to keep it that way. But if it's something you can just put in front of you, then you can do that. And then set your next meeting before you leave if possible, or make it on a regular, third Saturday of the month, or lunch every other Thursday, something like that. Set your appointment, and then end your time with prayer together. And again, for what's been shared and your spiritual friends' desires for the future. So, and the goal, what we mean by humility is just submitting to other people. Intentional means, if you don't intentionally have somebody you confess your sins to, if you don't intentionally have somebody that you can ask hard questions of or get good advice from, if you're not intentional about that, you just won't have it. And then when you need it, it's not the time to get it, right? The time to make those sort of mentorships and friendships are before you need them. And so you encourage you to make them, so when you have them, and you have the elders you can always ask. But it's, there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors. And so use the elders, but you need to have brothers and sisters in the body, and you have close intimate relationships who will tell you if you're wrong, or who will give you good advice when it's hard for you to see because maybe your emotions are too close to a situation or something like that. So humility and intentionality and invulnerability, we really rob ourselves and others of the grace of God when we don't live vulnerably before each other. We're not generous with our lives, when we're really doing the best we can do to be really who we are, not sort of this image we want other people to have. So, and admittedly, again, vulnerability is difficult because of the different degrees of sanctification you have in the body, age groups, and things like that, which is why important you have some very close, intentional friends. And then expansion, we're just talking about spiritual expansion. This is part of the process of growing in the Christian faith, is sort of obeying the one another commands and choosing to do that with some people specifically. So, HIVE, humility, intentionality, vulnerability, and expansion. That if you hear us using HIVE, you hear somebody talking about a HIVE partner and you haven't been with us very long, should have a little bit better understanding about it. You should also note that I also like to make up acronyms as well. Timeless, HIVE, 4 T's, truth together, table thrown, those mark all the meetings, right? 5, timeless practices. So trying to get these things in ways and package them sort of in ways that are easy for us to assimilate into our daily life and even into our language, help us to remember why we're doing these things and what do we hold in common. So those are best ways that I found in my own personal life. It just really helps me to put some names to them, and timeless and HIVE and 4 T's and 5 times practices, things like that. Always have been very helpful to me. I hope you find them helpful too. We'll check back in next week. And I think we're going to plow in now and start jumping into some of the discipleship and Christian discipline material. Probably going to talk maybe through the stations of life or the creation mandate, some call them. And so we'll touch base with those in the next few weeks. And I hope you're enjoying these sort of shortish videos. May the Lord richly bless you guys. I look forward to seeing you on the Lord's Day. Bye-bye.